I'll do it later. Actually, I'll do it now. It's like
oh yes, of course I remember. Of course I remember.
They
I
came
was
after
thinking,
my money, but I have lots and lots of money. These beautiful T-bills, the most beautiful T-bills you've ever seen, right? Right.
Yeah.
And they put me in handcuffs, and what happened was I generated $110 million, so you lose again. And then they came after my life. They came after my life. They shot me in the ear. The nicest ear you've ever seen. A pretty ear. The most beautiful ear. But that's what he does. He takes these things and then he puts the icing. Like I have a lawyer, the best lawyer you've ever seen. Right? And he rides that. Mm-hmm. I remember in 2000.
It's his communication style.
2018. He says, "I got votes from the highly educated. I got votes from the poorly educated. I love the poorly educated." Right? And it was just he didn't know. But. Let me tell you something. He has something that works for him. I ain't messing with that dude. I didn't mean to jump. We're gonna jump right back out, but I will leave this question out there as we re-explore this later. How many presidents in your lifetime that people are out there that have flags?
Yeah.
I mean, flag waving. Not some people they might have something on their lawn like Biden, like Obama, Biden, or whatever. Barack Obama had this big movement, this Yes We Can thing, right? And people bought that, and people had lawn signs, and you'll have bumper stickers,
right? But not flags.
Dude, you got people waving flags.
Yeah.
Isn't that and I enjoy the free speech.
I agree with you.
I will be very explicit when I say he's not my guy. I'll be very explicit when I say I'm probably most likely not going to vote for him because just because a war is not public doesn't mean we weren't bombing people. But I enjoy the value of free speech and disagreement. I'm going to show you a clip. There's a guy on the pier who has this huge Trump flag. And for 5 straight hours, no break, no lunch break, wave the flag back and forth.
Wow.
Some people honking the horn and support, and some people are like, oh, Biden, Harris. And it's like, Biden pulled out, right? So I'm going to... They tried to put me in handcuffs. Oh, so this is me. And when I was found convicted, so I did the impression. And he loved my impression, by the way. So I just want to go to this clip. Look at this guy. This was just 5 hours straight. And when I was found convicted, I raised $110 million. They came for my life. The nicest ears you've ever seen. So that was. This is this guy on Sunday, I think, or something like that. But the thing I respected about this guy, free speech is huge. Engagement is important. I ended up there were 2 Biden people there, like African American people. I'm centrist. We took a picture. Like the 3 of us someone literally had like a Biden Harris thing, and that day Biden pulled out, and they had a shirt. And the guy could have really gave it to him. Like, your guy's not even in a race anymore. And like, everyone took this picture together. Just like, and don't cancel, engage.
Yeah, don't. And with X, with Elon doing what he has done, like that went a long way because before that, Google can change the algorithm in a blink of an eye. Yeah. So which stories, whose stories are making it to the top, what's on page 1, they have total control of that. So the narrative is, what are we Googling? What's the algorithm? Right. And before Elon flipped the script.
Well, Elon was rather heroic to me in this sense. And this is where he's been severely misunderstood. Okay. He's been accused of getting rid of profiles that say things that he doesn't like, and people accusing him of saying, oh, he doesn't care about free speech. It's free speech when it's convenient for him. But my argument to them is, are you talking about free speech in terms of the First Amendment, which protects you from government persecution? Yeah. Or are you talking about free speech as a double-edged sword? Because free speech is not protected by from being combated by other free speech. So him
Right.
canceling you is his free speech.
Well, he
right?
owns the company.
And before he owned the company,
Yeah.
these were the same people that said it's a private company, they get to do what they want. So I wanted a little bit consistent, but I wanted a little bit consistency in their assertion, because 12 months before, when Elon wasn't even on the scene, that's what they were saying.
Right.
But I think.
Well, and then with the Twitter files and the government is involved.
But that was the point I'm making. That's why I thought he was more heroic in a sense, because protecting free speech in the sense of the classic sense of the First Amendment.
Yes.
And these people emailing the social media networks and threatening to remove the legislation that provides them from liability protection was very heroic.
Yeah.
And it took a set of gonads to make that happen, and I will always respect this man's crazy brain. Some of the things he says and thinks, that's the whole thing.
But the brain, I have a whole lot of respect for someone that can think like that. And
well, before that, it was just, I guess, people like you and me trying to float a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, these people think. I'm like, do you actually think the government is coercing social media to censor you? So before this came out, right?
Yes.
And you see these emails where these people showed their whole ass, right? Or butt, whatever. But before that, it was just a conspiracy theory.
There's this feeling I have that this doesn't seem right. It doesn't feel like it used to, right? And then
something didn't feel right.
Yeah,
well, I mean, to me, something.
And then I turned
right.
off the TV. I'm like, I don't watch the news anymore because I don't trust it.
Wow.
And then
and then
we start finding our alternative news outlets online, podcasts, all of, you give me a bunch of good people to follow because I don't spend as much time,
Rogan's
perusing. But then you see they don't have the hold they used to, because you wouldn't have people like Rogan or Tucker Carlson leaving or getting kicked out and then rising up to can
you appreciate the effort that they tried though to censor these people? Can you appreciate? If you want to go through the timeline, let's go through the timeline. Rogan, they said Rogan got in the most trouble with COVID, but what people don't know is it had nothing to do with COVID. Rogan could have never used the word COVID or swore on a 6-pack of Bibles to never use COVID again. It would have been in the same boat, because 8 months before that, he had Bernie Sanders on his podcast, and then an episode later, he says, "I like this guy, and I think I'd like to vote for someone like him." And then CNN the next day said he's endorsing Biden. And then, endorsing Sanders, and then an episode later, for the people that follow Joe, I never said I endorse this guy. I just said he's consistent, right? Yeah. And then he saw a video of Biden, like a compilation of Biden, kind of like losing his things. And he said, "I'd rather vote for Trump." So 2 days later in the news, this guy is now endorsing Trump. He can't make up his mind. And then an episode later, he says, "I did not say that."
Yeah.
He said, "I'd rather vote for Hillary than Biden. I'd rather vote for Klobuchar than Biden. Tulsi Gabbard in a heartbeat." So the people who followed him avidly, and when I say avidly, like some episodes are a skip. This one's talking about bees. We don't care about bees. Or, maybe Ted Nugent's talking about whatever. We don't care, right? But for the people that follow him enough, knew the truth. So COVID was a convenient excuse. And the 3 things that they accused him of floating 2 years later turned out to be not just true, 100% true.
Yeah.
And they said he was bringing on people that were floating these conspiracy theories, when in reality he was bringing on a pretty equal balance. Like Dr. Offit was Biden's COVID response team. He was on the podcast. Sanjay Gupta, who's CNN's rock star doctor, was on the podcast. So. And you and I had an argument about false balance. Like, you're giving the minority the same percentage of platform, but your argument was, how the hell do you know if they're a minority if everyone's being censored?
Yeah,
that had me cracking up. Are you sure about that number? So again, I didn't mean to dive that deep, but if we're talking about Elon Musk, that pull the mask, and let's name drop. How about Michael Schellenberger? Michael Schellenberger was actually an attorney that this generated his interest. And these are people that, because now the Republicans are on the side of free speech, because if you remember, free speech and anti-war was an old school liberal thing.
No, everything's
reversed.
We're doing this, you know, and it's happened before in,
so, but
in
now,
political
but
history.
no, but now that these people are saying that he's defending free speech, they're now accusing him of being a right-winger. But if you look at the actual facts, Elon Musk has never voted Republican in his life. He voted for Biden. He said he was promised the adults would be back in the room. So this is something a lot of people don't know. So Joe Rogan has never voted Republican in his life.
Yeah.
So when you listen to these news people and the way they spin this person, you have this picture. Hold on to that thought. But you draw in this picture of this person before you even listen to what he had to say.
Yeah, and you see what they're siding with. The thing is about, you know, a blue collar Democrat from way back when, or like what you're seeing. You're talking about Rogan or Musk voting Democratic. They're voting anti-elitist. Like that's what it's about. Yeah. You know, and the Democratic Party has been taken over by elitists.
No right winger would say that if Michelle Obama ran, I'd vote for her in a heartbeat. No right winger is going to say that. Joe Rogan said that.
Yeah.
You know, he said he was the wife of the president who, and I agree with this assertion. When, no matter what you think of Obama now, and I have changed feelings too, but when the rest of the world look to see who the president of the United States was, and it's that guy, they're like, cool, not too psychotic, right. You know, not too whatever, right? And then you had Trump, who kind of like turned up the temperature
and
a little bit.
And everybody was tired, you know.
Yeah, just exhausted.
I said at the end of that last election, I said, if he could have just found a little bit of humility, the things, I think it would have changed. That was just my internal belief. Because I couldn't stand to listen to the guy. I don't listen to his speeches.
But all of the polls support your assertion.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, think about this. The two largest voter turnouts for two candidates.
Yeah.
74 million for Trump and 81 million. The largest turnout in the history of voting happened the same year. So basically, in essence, Trump would have won if, like you said, if he found a way to tweak that way. But here's the broader point I want to make.
Yeah.
81 million people voted for Biden. How many of those people you think voted for Biden because they liked him? Maybe a third?
Yeah.
Maybe 2/3? Whatever. We can have a half-hour discussion, but the point is Trump's base was voting for him because they supported him. They voted for him because they liked him. Yeah. Evangelicals thought he was a Christian. I mean, give me a break, right? Now, these guys, the libertarians, are calling him the anti-war president. None of these things are wholeheartedly true, and in some cases demonstrably false. But the point is, they weren't saying, oh my God, I have this huge problem with Biden. Oh, he's this. No, they found a guy. They're in the street waving flags, Wendy.
Yeah.
They're in the street waving flags.
Yeah.
All right. It's not a bumper sticker.
Right. And to be honest with you, I thought the last 4 years would have been a lot. Like, to me, when it all went down, I was like, well, at least it's just going to be calm. I thought it would be a little calmer. We weren't going to hear all this inflammatory. Because I've told my kids for the last 6 years, I wouldn't have dinner with the guy. Like, he drives me nuts. I don't want to hear it. Like, he's not fun for me personally. I don't like to listen to him.
No. However, that's even recalibrating.
These last 4 years, you got to be kidding me. Because people are going to be out voting this time because they're just tired of how freaking expensive their lives got. Like, they're going to vote for way different reasons than they did 4 years ago.
Very good predictive validity.
Yeah. We
know, even before this assassination attempt and even before Biden pulled out, let's go back a month and a half. Both of us pretty much know Trump's going to win.
Yeah.
He's going to win in November, period.
Absolutely.
In fact, I'm going to do a Mystic Mac thing. I have a clip. You and I... Sorry, let me go over here. You and I, we had a show called Undivided.
Yep.
And I want to go play this clip for everybody listening. What an incredible list of topics now. What a healthy debate. But listen, but before we go, sorry, I'm going to play it again. I just want to go to the big screen. That's how I do it. The two arrows. Let's play it again. But Yeah, so while we're pulling this up, we have a show, a news show for everybody listening called Undivided. And listen, but before we go,
All
right, right there. Is that
we
it?
got some fan questions. All right, we're gonna take 3 before we leave because I think I'm my other Leo into running out of time. So my fault about that guy.
All right, here's the fun question.
Number 1. This is hilarious. Come on. Do you think Joe Biden's gonna make it to 2024? Yes or no?
No.
No. No. Oh, there's no one over there. Okay, cool.
Now here's the second question.
Question number 2. Do you think the Democratic Party wants Kamala Harris as to run for president?
No.
No. No. I'm a left-leaning.
So,
I can tell you,
so that was us.
They don't,
Probably what feels like 2 years ago.
And pumping drugs.
This is us calling
least 18
calling balls
months.
and strikes.
Yeah.
Calling balls and strikes. Our predictability. So this is not like a knee-jerk thing. This is something we called on our news show. And I don't know. Do we have a pool? I had like $15 in or something like that.
I don't know, but
I didn't think he was going to make it through 2024.
Yeah.
And he still, I guess
and
he's going to finish his term.
Case. It's been a strange, turbulent, terrible debate. I'm staying in to. I'm writing a letter, dropping out. Speech didn't tell you much, and then enter Kamala, and it's like.
Now here's where I'm disappointed.
She's a sacrificial lamb.
Now I'm speaking as a guy who still has democratic values. I just don't like crappy Democrats, right? Like you have feminist values, but you don't like crappy feminists, right?
And please, dear God,
right?
do not let her.
We
be
have
the
Christian
first
values,
female.
but we hate crappy Christians, right? And they're out there. So
I have a theory on that,
so my issue with the DNC is twofold. They knew this man was in cognitive decline. Because in 2019, they were, in the primary debate, they were begging him to pull out. The whole time Kamala Harris is saying that little girl is me or whatever, and he can't answer questions. And even Castro was like, this guy didn't even remember, what he was talking about. So that was 2019, and we both know that the symptoms get worse. And I'm not trying to medically diagnose this guy. I'm only speaking as a person who knows this, who recognizes the symptoms, and everyone knows what I'm talking about. So that's the first part of my problem. So this whole thing about him pulling out, now they're all willing to concede. We didn't know it was coming. They're going to lie about it. I didn't see it coming. Who
give me a friggin' break.
No, because the whole thing they were defending, they're calling you an ageist, right? When we weren't talking about age as a number, we were talking about
how do you show up to do the job every day?
Right.
And who's actually running the show? Because I'm sorry, that's not.
For the audience listening, how many people do you know in your 80s that have their full mental faculties? You have a great conversation with them. Yeah. So it's not age as much as it is the decline.
It's the decline.
Now here's my second gripe. All of a sudden, the entire world is with Kamala Harris like they were with her the whole time. She was in the primaries. She was the most financed, by the way, as far as contributions. She was the most financed candidate in the primaries and couldn't pull one single delegate. Not one. Until finally Tulsi Gabbard knocked her the F out. Just that was her.
She is a intelligent woman.
Yeah.
Harris.
Yeah.
I have, and I'm not going to mince my words. I do not understand how someone gets up every morning knowing they're on the world stage and has everyone's listening. And she gets up and says the stuff she says and recycles the speeches and says the same thing over and over again. You've got to be kidding me.
No, but what is the undreamt to unlearn? What was the word?
What comes behind, or what unburdened by what has been. I'm like, give me a friggin' break. I don't want to hear it.
What has been unburdened?
Oh, God. I can't. Like that. No. This cannot be our first female president. I'm sorry. Like, I cannot handle it. No, and I am all for having a woman in the White House. I am all for female empowerment, and I cannot.
Oh my God, we have to find that now.
You just type in "unburdened by what has been."
Yes,
you will get a handful.
Wendy, we cannot unring that bell. We have to. So, while I'm looking
It's
for
insulting.
this, because Wendy, I know maybe you lean a little bit more right than left, but
Sure.
even you have democratic values. Like, take care of your fellow man. You know what I'm saying? Pay your tax,
Absolutely.
you idiot. We got people
and see,
suffering
that's
out
the
there.
whole. That's the thing, because we can't.
Unburdened
by what has been. It is tragic.
I think I got something. Let's see what we got here.
I'll show you. She said it like 40.
Imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know? What can be unburdened by what has been.
There are those who are unable to see what can be, but there are many more who are able to see what can be unburdened by what has been. Remember Venn diagrams, those 3 circles?
Okay.
Right. And then let's just see where they overlap. You will not be surprised because I have constructed a Venn diagram on this. Remember those 3 circles, how they overlap? I love Venn diagrams, so I just do. Whenever you're dealing with conflict, pull out a Venn diagram, right? And so, you know, the 3 circles.
Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia.
You knew Fox
Russia
News would have a
bigger
field day with
country.
this.
Right.
Russia is a powerful
Yeah.
country.
And I was gonna say,
Russia
someone's
decided
gonna
to
say-
invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically, that's wrong.
Okay.
So someone's gonna say that was on Fox News, but the point is, she puts that stuff out there.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, everyone's hanging on every word you say.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't.
yet it's
it
not
wasn't-
reported the same.
But it wasn't a manufactured quote.
No.
And that wasn't even a spin.
No.
Like, you can spin a sentence
Right.
and maybe skip a
Yeah,
sentence.
that
That
was-
is this.
Right. And that's showing up
Yeah.
unprepared for the job.
Right.
I'm sorry. Like, you're not making a speech like that and saying things like that if you are
Quote,
not.
false accusation that Joe Biden is a
So
racist.
this is,
What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system.
Big fan. I love
That is
her.
disproportionately
I do and I
negatively
don't,
impacting
but I still love
black
her.
and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence.
Listen to the crowd, too.
She blocked evidence
Those are
that
booster
would
people
have
clapping.
freed an
They
innocent
don't
man
want-
from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep
Thank you,
cash bail
Congresswoman.
system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your
I
response?
think that's
Yeah.
good. We'll
Just
I
please
guess we'll
no.
finish
Just
there.
please, that is not going to be our first female president. That's just not going to
But
happen.
I think the
and
point
I think
was
she's a
trying to make,
sacrificial lamb.
you see a room full of that. There are people in the room that are supposed to cheer people that the Democratic Party's pushing. She was the most financed candidate in 2019, and the room, Tulsi stole the room. And Tulsi, if you remember,
She's genuine.
Look,
She's a critically thinking, genuine, intelligent woman.
but you're
I'd
gonna
take
you're
that
gonna
any
draw
day
a
of the
line
week.
in the sand if you like she was the DNC vice chair at the time, right? And she was a darling. She had she was doing the speeches in the DNC
Yeah.
or whatever, and she was their next sweetheart.
Right.
She's good looking.
Yeah.
Right. She checked all the boxes.
Intelligent.
Woman of color,
Yeah.
military vet. Right. Check.
Yeah.
But then she resigned from her chair to endorse Bernie Sanders in the primary. There were a handful of Congress people that, and if you're with the DNC, if you're one of the chairs, you have to be unbiased. But tell that to
Right.
Wasserman Schultz.
Yeah. Right.
But when you draw a line in the sand when you say I'm for Bernie, which is what
Yeah.
happened with Rogan, which has happened whatever. I think at that time I was kind of a Bernie guy, but and I don't know if there's a hostage situation that just made him totally just say what's the word, existential threat. This is something we heard the last
Right.
3 elections,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
This is the talking point, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work, and these
There are
fake
some-
these fake polls aren't going to work either. I am.
Yeah, I don't know, and I think that's the baseline problem with where we've got is like no one knows what to trust. It's not worth turning on your TV. You know what you're gonna get,
And nobody.
and it's all biased. There's
and if you look at the ratings, like
Yeah,
CNN's has been the worst.
Yeah.
CNN made a choice,
worse than MSNBC.
right? And that's
Well-
saying something.
Yeah,
And right now, Fox News, which I watch for comedy, is the most viewed cable network. And that was because of Tucker Carlson, who
Yeah.
they got rid of. So
Yeah.
but that was the other guy I wanted to talk about. Him. I'm just going to name names. Him. There's a journalist, Tom Berenson, that was labeled the quack.
Yeah.
For saying that this isn't an actual. This is a therapeutic.
Okay.
That was his opinion based on whatever and based on what the definition of the vaccine is, right? Which, by the way, is safe and effective and prevents severe disease. Yeah. So got his Twitter removed handle. This is before Elon. Dr. Malone got it the worst, right?
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson, got his thing canceled. The New York Post got their thing removed for the Hunter Biden laptop story. So the Republicans thought it was this attack solely on them, but what they're missing, and you might be missing this too, there's a large group of people that are called progressives. They are left to the left,
Right.
that are labeled right-wingers, that got their things removed. Like Rogan caught it. Rogan's never removed it. Russell Brand is a big liberal.
Right. But it's like they come around the tail.
Right wing.
Right.
But and these were celebrities that were hard to cancel that did not vote Republican. So what a lot of people were missing, that were trying to make this a left-right thing.
Yeah.
Rogan, Brand, these guys were saying, guys, this is an up-down thing. The left-right thing is a masquerade to keep this show going, to keep the money, the campaign.
It's the money.
Going in, and
and it's the erasing of the middle class, and it's the good, hardworking people that you saw really get canceled during the pandemic.
No doubt.
Right.
Yeah, no doubt.
The you lost me when the small businessmen are losing their lunch, and how stressful that is for American families, and Target's being bailed out and Amazon's being bailed out. Like, give me a break.
And it's weird because people like me get accused of not being an expert in some of these fields, but I will only defer to the things that I studied. Well, first of all, we're old school. So old school, and I had Melissa Lim on my podcast. I said this old school thing of doing your own research was called reading.
Yeah. Well, they don't want, but see, that's the problem, is the bigger platforms, they're nobody's raising a generation of critical thinkers anymore. Because what we're doing right now is what we used to do around the dinner table. And we weren't raising kids with such thin skin that they couldn't hear a different opinion and go running to their teacher or their mom and say, I'm so offended. That's what I'm like. We have every right to sit here. We're Americans. We have every right to sit here and have the conversation. Doesn't matter how much research I did walking into this room.
Isn't that
if
amazing?
you invite me here, let's just have the conversation. You don't have to agree with me.
And ironically enough, like one of my most viewed episodes is you and me talking about why I got canceled. And I'm like, how did this get viewership? This is the one this is the video you're supposed to
It's pissing
suppress.
regular people off.
Right. But that was the one they were supposed to suppress.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, I'm listening.
All right.
I'm not gonna comment. I'm not gonna click like. I don't want no attention that's gonna get that video touched. Cool. Just watch it and don't click like.
Yeah.
But for me, doing your own research, which I call reading, is deferring to the things that you learned growing up, right? Like, if you're looking at data, and if it's clinical data, you're not a doctor, fine. But if it's statistical data, that might be within your wheelhouse. You might have taken quantitative reasoning, advanced in college, right? So a statistical analysis is even better because you're actually looking at the things that are hidden in plain sight. Right. They have to say what we're not telling you in fine print or on the left or whatever. We're not telling you this, right? So if people stop being so lazy.
Yeah. Our attention span, it's like, who's reading the studies? Well, at best, they're reading the abstract, right? Like that's.
But what they don't realize is that if you defer to the dynamic or the power dynamic that you're trusting, what you're doing is you're giving up control.
Yeah.
You're giving up your freedom for the sake of security.
Yeah.
For the sake of being safe, right? And I think a lot of people want you to play like you're stupid. It's so weird. I'm rambling.
I just don't want to raise stupid kids. I love kids.
Well, you're doing good.
Think.
You got a Stanford grad, which which by the way, there was a research place in Stanford that got finally axed. I was happy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were found up through email correspondence. They were coerced by the government to launch this thing to create algorithms to suppress people's accounts. And it was a Stanford. It was called the ITP project, and it was Stanford University. It was actually
I tell you, I want to trust.
I do too,
but
and
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't.
But there's nothing wrong with reading, because reading eliminates human error, right? So it's not that you and I don't believe in the science. It's not that you and I don't believe in facts. We are just trying to eliminate something we call human error. And at the top of that human error list is just, do I trust you?
Yeah.
Then when you start, you're promoting a drug, but are you investing? Do you have stock investments?
That's the greed.
Do you have stock investments
right.
in a company that you're supposed to be regulating?
Right.
Right.
And are you allowing people to invest in studies that then have certain outcomes because people have invested to have an outcome come from something that was supposed to be completely double blind? And
it's not the American way.
It's not.
No.
But
you know what the American way is? Informed consent.
Yeah.
Letting you know what's going on, and you know that, you assume the risk.
That would require a population that is smart enough to read and have the ability to stay with it and understand what they're taking in. And I feel like more and more we're getting away from even that. So
but even let's say they don't do the research. Let's say they're dumb. That's their right.
That's their right.
That's their right, because we need dumb people to protect the smart people. Look, guys, ignorance is not only bliss, it's constitutional. All right, it is your right to be ignorant to something, as long as you're not doing harm to others. And if we're talking about the last 3 years, when we found out what was happening to us was not doing harm to others,
right?
That's when they needed to have a full stop, and they didn't.
And they didn't.
And
they let the virtue signaling keep going, and it confused a lot of people. And confused a lot of kids.
I mean, look, since we're going hard in the paint here, let me ask this. What does science mean when someone lies to you and says that this thing has been tested to prevent transmission over and over and over, only to find out that Pfizer admitted under oath at a European parliamentary hearing?
Yeah.
She actually said, of course not. It was more like, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
So what does science mean when someone tells you that? What does science mean when someone says that like a mass suppressor protects you, and then an actual scientific study comes out saying it's done little to protect you, but because the Democrats didn't say it, or because your political party didn't say that,
you can't believe
now all of a sudden you start making up, it works a little bit. So you start making up your own science, and now you've become the person that you've been gaslighting.
Yeah.
You've become the person that you've been gaslighting for 2 years because the science isn't convenient for you. You accuse them as with the science not being convenient for them.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
And I would be totally okay, Wendy, if there was informed consent. I'd be totally okay to be like, yo, this is scary. I'm scared. You're scared.
Right.
We have this drug, this experimental drug, and you can take it or leave it. It might work. We believe it works.
Oh, well, we were way past that.
I would have been totally okay with that.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened.
No.
We got...
Not for athletes, not for travelers, not for people working at certain companies. You weren't allowed to travel. You weren't allowed to go to a restaurant. You weren't allowed to... and concerts.
And sometimes, and this is why I like podcasts that don't have a whole bunch of extras, because experts are not going to ask a question they already know the answer to.
Yeah.
Sometimes to get a smart answer, you need a dummy just like me to ask the question. I have a friend, James Barker. He never lays claims of being a genius. He's just a country boy from Lubbock. And you know what he said? He says, hey, Jay, you know what I don't understand? What I don't understand is I got to go to the restaurant, right? And they say you got to wear the mask to come in. I got a table for 5, right? You got to wear the mask to come in. But when you sit down, you can take the mask off. So I guess my question is COVID only 5 feet high? It's just like, and I'm overplaying the accent. Yeah. James, don't drive here in your pickup truck and kick my butt. A big Texas butt whooping. But
it was a wild time.
No, but think about it. This is a guy that's not educated on the science. He has no advanced medical degree, no training, that asked a legitimate question. the man basically said, you have to wear a mask to come in to protect yourselves.
Yeah.
But when you're sitting to eat,
there's no logic.
no.
And there's so much harm that was done. And the kid who won one of the biggest awards there at the end of the year, Stanford Student Athlete Awards, there were 3 at the end, and one of them was a basketball player. He did a study on his thesis was on the what was the effect of the lockdowns on K through 8 students.
Right.
And one of the, the audience, somebody, or the gal that was commentating, asking the question, she said, so what'd you find out? And he goes, yeah, pretty much what I thought I was going to find out,
right.
which was the effect on K through 8
Was this the
students.
valedictorian? Was he the one supposed to give the speech?
No,
and
this
they
is
didn't allow
called
to give him the speech? Right.
No, these were the student athlete awards.
Right.
They're various awards they give to kids, student athletes at Stanford, but this kid, they really highlighted what he learned, and it was just how detrimental it was for K through 8 students, and you're seeing it, like kids going off to college are having trouble, all of the
right.
the testing. It's that all the test scores are down. It's terrible. It's the state of education drastically changed.
Right. Yeah, so you were talking about the socioeconomical impact, which, by the way, we both agree, and everybody listening to this is forced to agree that the scientists are not qualified to talk about.
Yeah.
So do you understand what I'm saying? What makes them an expert on the rollout? They're not trained in sociology. They're not trained on economics. They're not trained on that. So I mean, it's really just about everybody answering, at least asking the right question.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just, and it's such a hard thing to rehash, because as time goes on, we're going to see more and more of like where you and I, like our gut was telling us, 2 years ago that this isn't good. But as time goes on, it becomes very, very apparent.
But don't you see my overall point? The reason why we keep rehashing it is because they didn't just say, just try this, and if you don't want to, don't, whatever. That's not what happened. No, we are the science. In this house, we follow the science. In this house,
the virtue signal was
cable news anchors lecturing you, right? I played
Right.
that clip on you, dude. Hey, for Undivided, you left me alone. You had a Cats Away the Mice play, and man, I clipped up, didn't I?
Yep.
Dude, that was one of my favorite clips. I hope you listen to it.
Yeah.
I rehashed Not For Me, But For Thee.
Yeah.
So here's the way around it. So what do we do? Because we got to leave with a positive note.
Yeah.
The way around
Always.
it is, for everybody that feels the same way you do, this is the way around this. If you are armed with the same information as them that you believe to be true, you would be just as up in arms as them. So as long as you understand that from an empathetic page, like if you were in that situation and you believed it the way they did, and you were scared as them, empathy will eventually lead to some sort of forgiveness. We have to forgive each other.
Absolutely, because
we have to forgive
in the
each
end,
other.
right? And we were living in a very fear-based society, which I hate. I'm ultimately opposed to, right? Because the opposite of fear is love, and there was when we all took sides, you felt the love. Just you had friends that, like, people were losing friends over just
family members,
right? And you just have to go with the opposite of fear always. Like, love them more. Like, listen to what they think.
Yeah,
that's it.
Again, I saw like a group photo of
everybody's got a different
Trump and
experience.
Biden supporters on the pier, took the picture together. It was it was the most rare thing you've ever seen, because again, the ramped upness of the moral preening of what you support and what you don't has created this gap, I have an activist I listen to on YouTube called Sabrina Salvati, right?
Oh yeah, you were telling me this.
She's a socialist, an admitted democratic socialist, and they have their way of going about things, but I listen to her because I'm always going, even if she's wrong, I'm always going to get the truth from her.
Yeah.
She's never going to try to convince me to see it her way via manipulation or lying. She believes in what she's saying. And those kind of people get a little judgy. So you're with that group. You're not really part of that group because we could do without all the judginess and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because that's what
But the judginess is just
But that's
ego.
what comes full circle.
Yeah,
in
that's
the first
just
place.
ego,
Yeah. And
right?
what she has none. She's just angry and frustrated and whatever on issues that we can talk about on another podcast or things that are happening overseas, which we'll leave alone because I've already crossed so
people
many lines.
People are gonna get tired of hearing us. We gotta.
I can say that Stanford had a huge walkout because of the overseas.
Yeah, you
thing.
called me. You were like, "Is this true?" I was like, "Yeah, about 500 to 600 kids walked out."
Harvard was.
Yeah.
Harvard was like.
But you know what? They walked out.
It's free speech.
Go ahead.
You are the biggest proponent of free speech as long as it's peaceful.
Yeah.
You've been.
Yeah.
I would actually call you a free speech absolutist as long as it's peaceful.
Yeah, I am. I think that's what we're based on.
Well, I'd like to finish this episode by saying, popular speech doesn't need protection. Unpopular speech, the things that are inconvenient to hear, need protection. Right.
Yeah.
And if we can do it for the KKK. And if we can do it for neo-Nazis, if the ACLU can go to court and protect their right to protest, why can't we? Because why can't we do it now?
Just be big enough to listen.
Yeah.
That's always it.
Come check out the Option Podcast on optionvb.com. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify and on YouTube under the NY Varsity Sports handle. You're going to love what you hear.